Hi everybody. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about holding the bow, some real basics about holding a viola bow. At the end of the video, I'll explain a little bit about the difference about holding a viola bow and holding a violin bow, just to see the difference of them. So let's get started and just talk a little bit about what we need to do and what all the fingers need to do and how to place them on the bow for a really good bow hold. So, the first thing we need to know is that we need a good combination of strength and flexibility. So we need to adjust our fingers on the bow so that we can get a good balance between real strength so we can have a nice big round sound and flexibility so that we can play quickly and do all of the manipulation that we need to do to get all of the technique for the pieces that we're playing. So let's talk about the thumb first. The thumb is here to provide support for all of the fingers and the bow. Of course, it sits under the bow, so it's going to be there to kind of balance the whole bow there with the fingers on top, and it provides flexibility. So the thumb, if it's straight, the bow will just slip out, meaning that in order to have the bow secure, I have to hold really tight. If it's curved, it provides kind of a bed for the bow there. And if I add pressure, it doesn't give on me like this, like so. So it's going to be rounded. Some people make the mistake of having the thumb way too rounded so that it looks like this. What we're looking for in a good bow hold is a lack of tension. We really don't want to have any tension in our bow hold. We want it to be very strong and very flexible. But the second that it gets tense, it loses its flexibility. And the elastic feeling of a bow hold always has to be there. So whether it's straight like this, where it's inflexible, or completely rounded like this, where it's inflexible, that's not where we want to be. So we want to be somewhere in between. So I put my thumb over here and wiggle it around a bit, and that's about where my thumb should be. So even though some people would say that's a straight thumb, that's curved because you can see that there's a curve there. That's straight. That's curved. And if you wiggle your thumb around and just kind of get the natural position, that's where we want to be. The bow hold needs to generally be very, very natural. So each person's hands are a little different. And so we're always looking for the most natural position of our bow hold. What does the first finger do? The pointer finger. Well, the pointer finger is really, really important because that is the header of the bow. So we have the bow hold like this, and the closest finger to the string really, most of the time, is this finger right there. So I call this the driver. So this is going to steer for us. So we need a good place in this finger where it can actually steer the bow and provide security. A lot of people hold their bow on, well, let's count the joints here. Here's the first joint. Here's the second joint. And here's the third joint. So you can see those little lines there. 1, 2, 3. I've seen a lot of people hold on the second joint over here, looking like this. Oops. The problem with that is that if I take my bow and move it back and forth, there's a lot of movement. So I've come to the realization that I need to play at my first joint over there because once I can figure out how to set it in there, I have a lot of strength here and control. So this finger is going to really control the bow movement. And I make sure that I have a lot of flexibility. So you can see again over here with my thumb that I'm flexible. And this finger is in that first joint. These two fingers kind of operate together for me. I call this the engine. So this together with my thumb provides my real bow hold over here. I always tell people, try to look like a fox, because when you see that I go like this, I have the two ears here and I have a face. So I look like some sort of a fox like this. And these this is going to set my bow hold. So I take my thumb and I put these two fingers together. Take my thumb and set the thumb into the first joint and make a circle, like so. That's going to be my basic hold of the bow. I call that the engine because these together are going to provide strength, flexibility, and support of the bow, and they're going to drive the bow. The first finger is going to give me steering. It's also going to drive the bow, and that's going to work together. But what does the fourth finger do over here, the pinky? Well, the pinky is going to balance the whole thing. Because as you know, the pinky sits on top of the bow on a viola bow, so like so. So what we need here is that if it's straight, it's going to make the bow tight. Anything that's straight is going to be tight. So when I go like this, I have a tense hand. When I go like this, I have a tense hand. So I need to be in the middle. So you can see if I just hold my hand naturally like this, that all my fingers are curved. You see how the pinky is curved there? When I touch the bow with my pinky, I try to keep that same curve as if my hand is just sitting normally, like so. So now let's get to holding the bow. The first thing that I do is I set the bow on top of my thumb. So I personally hold the bow around the middle of the thumb leather. Later in the video, I'll answer the question of where should I hold the bow? So we can talk about it a little bit more, but let's get to holding it now. So I put my thumb on top of the thumb leather, like so, making sure it has that curve. And then I take those middle two fingers and put them in that first joint right across from the thumb. So now I have my fox position, except that my hand is on the bow. Hopefully we can see that in all these different angles, like this. Then I take this finger, my first finger, and when I set my bow hold, I put it next to all of my other fingers, and I pull it out until it sits in that first joint. So like this, you can see the joint there, and I pull it out until I can feel it inside that first joint. So that's about 1/2 inch away or a pencil length away there. Let's measure that. So you can see here if I put a pencil in there, it's kind of like a pencil's length from these middle two fingers. And that's where I like this finger to be. If we go out too far like this, the first finger gets straight and then it gets tightened to hold. And I see that a lot. So I try to keep it over here where the first finger can stay curved. We always want curvy fingers. Now when I set my pinky, all I have to do is put it down on the bow. I usually put it in between the fingernail and the finger. There's a little place in here we can use. And I put it down on the stick like so. So it sits on top. A good exercise right now is just to tap so it feels very natural. You'll see that my pinky is pretty close to my other fingers. I see a lot of people hold it like this. And again, it feels tight over there. That's tension. We don't want that. So put it next to the other fingers and start tapping and see where. So I'm going to tap from here and see where I stop, where I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable about right there. So that becomes my bow hold right here. So my bow hold looks like this. The fingers are relatively close to each other because that gives me a lot of flexibility in my bowing. It also, I have the strength with my thumb, so you can see that over there. And now I have this flexibility in my fingers, like so. Yet I have a whole bunch of strength. So let's see what it looks like when I play like this. It feels good. Whoop, I just broke a bow hair. So let's just recap that bow hold. First, I'm going to hold the bow horizontal like this with my left hand. I'm going to put my thumb under the bow on the thumb leather, like so, making sure it's not straight or too curved, but a nice easy curve like that. You see if I'm checking to see if I have flexibility, which I do. Then I take the middle two fingers and place them on that first joint, right across from the thumb, 2 of them across from the thumb, so I have my good engine over here. put my first finger down on the bow next to the other fingers and pull it out until it sits inside that first joint. Take my pinky, tap, move it away from the other fingers just a little bit till I feel comfortable. And that's it. That's the bow hold. That's all you have to do. So for holding a viola, that's what I recommend. Let me answer just a few questions. Is a viola bow hold the same as a violin bow hold? Essentially, yes. The only difference is that the strings on a viola are a little thicker and the viola is a little bit bigger. So we need to kind of have a hybrid between a violin, which is smaller, and a cello, which is larger. Now, the people, when they hold a cello bow, the pinky generally falls off the end of the bow like this, so we're going to put it on top. But generally, on the viola, we're going to play a little bit more in the lower half than we would on a violin. On the violin, we play a lot in the upper half. Some of the strokes that are done on the upper half on a violin are done on the lower half of a viola. So we need to have our fingers situated just in a way that it's a little bit easier to use the bow and manipulate down at the frog. Like so. So it's generally the same. It's just that I put a little bit more stock in my two lower fingers here when I'm playing the viola because I try to have equidistant pressure on the bow. In other words, I don't want to be centered on this finger or this finger. I want all four fingers to have a good feel for the bow. Sometimes on the violin, we can just lean in on this finger over here like so. But on the viola, we're going to have more of a feeling of centering the weight or the grip of all the fingers on the stick. Where should my thumb go on the bow? Should it go on top of the frog? Or should it go on top of the thumb leather? Or should it be on the wood touching the frog? Well, a lot of people I see hold it on the frog like so. I find that very difficult because when I do that, the bow gets heavier. So I can really feel the weight of the tip. I can really feel the weight of the tip over there when I hold like this. And so it makes me just a little bit more clumsy. It's kind of like with a baseball bat, that when we're playing with the bat all the way at the end, then you get a little more power, but you lose some control. And if you just, what we call choke up a little bit like that, you have a little bit more feel for the place where we hit the ball with the bat, so it's a little bit more controlled. So I use that analogy and hold my finger right in the middle of the thumb leather so that when you watch my bow hold, it's a little bit more towards the tip than most people. I see a lot of people hold their pinky on top of the button over here, and I feel that that makes me lose a little bit of flexibility because I'm so worried about holding the bow that it makes me hold the bow a little bit more. And when I'm over here, the bow gets lighter as we go up the bow. So if you hold the bow at the balance point, the bow is virtually weightless. So I use that analogy and come back and just touch my thumb to the thumb leather over here and base my bow hold like that. You'll see that my pinky goes slightly in front of that eyelet right here. So it's right in front of the eyelet. So a good rule of thumb would be to put the pinky kind of right over the eyelet, and that would be a good way to hold the bow. And you'll see that when I do that, that basically I'm in the right position. I generally go just a little bit farther up like this, and that would be my bow hold right there. Well, I hope that this video gave you a really good idea of what I do to hold my bow. And if you're a beginner, I think it's really helpful to see someone how they operate. And if you're an advanced player or an advanced student, it's interesting always to see what people do about holding their bow, because that's a really major part of our playing. So until next time, everybody have a wonderful time practicing, and hopefully the video's been helpful for you.